Former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows reportedly offering damning testimony against the former president to Special Counsel Jack Smith in exchange for immunity. That's according to ABC News. Our chief legal affairs correspondent Paula Reed is gathering details for us. Paula, what can you tell us?
Well, CNN previously reported that Mark Meadows had testified before a federal grand jury investigating former President Trump. Now we're learning more about what he has reportedly told investigators. Now, according to reports, he's spoken with investigators 3 times over the past year, and he's told them that in the weeks following the 2020 election, he says that he told Trump that these allegations of significant voter fraud were baseless. Now, that is such a significant break from the rhetoric of former President Trump. It's also a significant break from what Meadows has said publicly, including in a book that he wrote because he said he wanted to, quote, set the record straight. He reportedly told investigators that Trump was being, quote, dishonest and that obviously we didn't win.
Okay, so we need to talk about what just happened because Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, just completely flipped on Trump and handed over absolutely massive amounts of evidence to federal prosecutors that completely demolishes Trump's legal defenses and Trump's entire strategy for defending himself against election interference charges and classified documents charges. Mark Meadows testified under oath that he warned Trump there was no proof of massive fraud in the 2020 election. Meadows is on the record saying that Trump told him personally, obviously we didn't win, which means Trump knew that Trump lost the election, but Trump went ahead and tried to overturn the election anyway through fake electors and through pressure campaigns against state officials. Meadows provided emails, texts, and call logs showing Trump directly instructing the recruitment of fake electors in multiple states. Meadows provided evidence of Trump pressuring officials in Georgia and Arizona and Michigan to change the election results. Meadows provided detailed testimony about Trump's instructions to Rudy Giuliani for baseless fraud claims. Meadows confirmed that the whole thing was a deliberate conspiracy and that Trump knew it was a lie from the beginning. Come on, are you kidding me? Trump's own chief of staff, the person who was closest to Trump during the entire fake election scheme, just turned into the prosecution's star witness and handed over the smoking gun evidence that proves Trump's guilt. This is absolutely devastating for Trump's legal position and absolutely devastating for Trump's ability to defend himself in court. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Now, Meadows is seen as a critical witness. He was the White House chief of staff, and he can offer keen insights into Trump's actions and state of mind following the election. Now, he also allegedly told investigators that he has never seen any evidence of fraud that would keep now President Joe Biden from the White House, and that he agrees this was the most secure election in U.S. history.
Paula, this sounds like really much more bad news for Trump in his own legal battles that are ongoing right now. Tell our viewers what this means for the former president.
This is one of the most significant developments in this entire investigation.
Here's what's making this absolutely insane and what's making this such a catastrophic moment for Trump's legal future. Mark Meadows was Trump's chief of staff from 2020 to 2021. Meadows was with Trump every single day during the period when Trump was trying to overturn the election results. Meadows was present for meetings where Trump was planning the fake elector scheme. Meadows was in the room when Trump was calling state officials and pressuring them to change election results. Meadows had direct knowledge of Trump's actions and Trump's state of mind during the entire election overthrow scheme. Meadows is the kind of witness that prosecutors dream about because Meadows has firsthand knowledge of what Trump was doing, and Meadows can testify directly about Trump's knowledge that the election was not stolen. And now Meadows is testifying for the prosecution instead of defending Trump. Meadows is turning his back on Trump and is giving prosecutors everything they need to convict Trump on election interference charges. This is the kind of testimony that can end a presidency and can send a former president to prison. This is absolutely catastrophic for Trump. What makes this even worse for Trump is that Meadows apparently received a pardon from Trump, but Meadows is cooperating with prosecutors anyway. Trump apparently thought that by pardoning Meadows, Meadows would stay loyal to Trump and would not cooperate with prosecutors. But Meadows decided that cooperating with prosecutors was more important than maintaining loyalty to Trump. Meadows decided that telling the truth and providing evidence to prosecutors was more important than protecting Trump. This shows that Trump's pardon did not actually buy Meadows' loyalty, and that Meadows' moral conscience or Meadows' desire to tell the truth was stronger than Trump's attempt to silence him through a pardon. This is absolutely humiliating for Trump because Trump thought Trump could buy Meadows' silence with a pardon, but Meadows is cooperating with prosecutors anyway. Trump basically paid Meadows off with a pardon, and then Meadows turned around and betrayed Trump to the prosecutors. This is the ultimate betrayal and the ultimate failure of Trump's strategy to protect himself legally by pardoning people who could testify against him. The most devastating part of Meadows' testimony is probably the fact that Meadows is on record saying that Trump told him directly, "Obviously, we didn't win." This quote is absolutely devastating because it proves that Trump knew Trump lost the election. Trump didn't genuinely believe the election was stolen. Trump knew Trump lost, but Trump went ahead with the fake elector scheme and the pressure campaign against state officials anyway. Trump knowingly lied about the election being stolen. Trump knowingly participated in a scheme to overturn the election results, even though Trump knew the election results were legitimate. This knowledge of Trump's guilt is the smoking gun evidence that prosecutors have been looking for. With Meadows' testimony that Trump said, "Obviously, we didn't win," prosecutors can prove that Trump acted with criminal intent. Prosecutors can prove that Trump knew what Trump was doing was illegal and that Trump did it anyway. This kind of testimony about Trump's guilty knowledge can lead directly to criminal conviction. This is absolutely devastating for Trump's legal position. What's also absolutely wild about this situation is that Meadows is now the prosecution's star witness against Trump. Meadows is going to appear in court and testify against Trump. Meadows is going to describe Trump's actions, Trump's statements, Trump's intentions to the jury. Meadows is going to be cross-examined by Trump's lawyers, but the damage is already done because Meadows has already testified and the evidence is already in the record. Trump's lawyers are not going to be able to shake Meadows' testimony or convince Meadows to change his story because Meadows is already committed to his testimony and because Meadows has already decided that cooperating with prosecutors is the right thing to do. This is an absolutely unprecedented situation where Trump's own chief of staff is testifying for the prosecution and is describing Trump's criminal conduct in detail. This is the kind of testimony that can result in Trump being convicted and sent to prison, too. This is absolutely catastrophic for Trump's legal future and absolutely catastrophic for Trump's political survival. All right, so let's dig into the specifics of what Mark Meadows actually testified to and what evidence Meadows actually provided to prosecutors. The most important piece of testimony is Meadows saying that he warned Trump there was no proof of massive fraud in the 2020 election. This means that Meadows explicitly told Trump that the claims about election fraud were not supported by evidence. Meadows is telling Trump directly that Trump's claims about fraud are false and are not backed up by any proof. And then, despite receiving this warning from his own chief of staff, Trump went ahead with the fake elector scheme anyway. Trump went ahead with pressuring state officials to change election results anyway. Trump went ahead with instructions to Rudy Giuliani to make baseless fraud claims anyway. This shows that Trump knew there was no proof of fraud, but Trump pursued the fake elector scheme and the election overthrow plan anyway. This is criminal conspiracy and this is election interference because Trump was knowingly pursuing an illegal scheme to overturn legitimate election results. Meadows' testimony that Trump said, "Obviously we didn't win," is absolutely devastating because it destroys Trump's defense that Trump genuinely believed the election was stolen. Trump's entire legal defense has been based on the claim that Trump sincerely believed there was fraud and that Trump was trying to ensure the integrity of the election. But Meadows' testimony shows that Trump knew Trump didn't win. Trump explicitly told his chief of staff that Trump obviously didn't win. This means Trump knew the election results were legitimate. This means Trump knew the fraud claims were false. This means Trump's entire defense is based on a lie. Trump can no longer claim that Trump genuinely believed the election was stolen because Trump's own chief of staff is testifying under oath that Trump told him Trump knew Trump lost. This is the kind of testimony that shatters a defendant's defense and opens the defendant up to conviction on charges like conspiracy and fraud. Let's talk about the emails, texts, and call logs that Meadows provided because these documents are probably even more devastating than Meadows' testimony. Meadows provided evidence showing Trump directly instructing the recruitment of fake electors in multiple states. These are probably emails or texts where Trump is telling people to recruit fake electors to submit fraudulent electoral votes to Congress. These documents show that the fake elector scheme was not some spontaneous grassroots effort. It was directly ordered and coordinated by Trump personally. Trump was the one running the scheme. Trump was the one directing people to recruit fake electors. Trump was the one orchestrating the entire conspiracy to overturn the election. These documents are absolutely smoking gun evidence of Trump's direct involvement in the fake elector conspiracy. These documents show criminal conspiracy and show election interference. These documents can be used in court to prove that Trump directed the entire fake elector scheme. The emails, texts, and call logs showing Trump pressuring officials in Georgia and Arizona and Michigan to change election results are also absolutely devastating evidence of election interference. These documents probably show Trump calling state officials and demanding that they change the election results or find votes or reverse the election outcome. These communications show that Trump was trying to use presidential power and presidential pressure to reverse legitimate election results. These communications show election interference and show abuse of power. These communications can be used to prove that Trump violated federal election laws and violated state election laws. These communications are the kind of evidence that prosecutors need to prove election interference charges in multiple states. Meadows has provided prosecutors with the roadmap to prosecuting Trump on election interference charges in multiple jurisdictions. Meadows also detailed Trump's instructions to Rudy Giuliani for making baseless fraud claims. This probably means Meadows can testify about meetings or communications where Trump told Giuliani to make up fraud claims and push them publicly, even though Trump knew the claims were false. This shows that Trump was deliberately spreading misinformation about the election. This shows that Trump was knowingly making false statements about election fraud. This shows that Trump was using false claims about fraud as a pretext for the fake elector scheme and the pressure campaign against state officials. This is absolutely devastating evidence of Trump's guilt because it shows that Trump was deliberately lying about fraud to cover up Trump's election overthrow conspiracy. Now let's talk about what Meadows' testimony about January 6th incitement means. Meadows apparently provided testimony about Trump's role in inciting the January 6th Capitol riot. Meadows probably testified about Trump's statements before January 6th, about Trump's actions on January 6th, about Trump's refusal to intervene to stop the riot. This testimony is devastating because it shows Trump's direct involvement in inciting the riot. This testimony can be used to prove that Trump violated federal law by inciting a riot and by obstructing Congress. This testimony can be used in criminal prosecution of Trump for his role in January 6th. Meadows' testimony about January 6th is separate from his testimony about the fake elector scheme, but both sets of testimony show Trump's criminal conduct during the period when Trump was trying to overturn the election. Meadows also provided testimony about Trump's document obstruction. Meadows probably testified about Trump's instructions regarding classified documents, about Trump's efforts to conceal documents from investigators, about Trump's refusal to return classified documents to the government. This testimony is devastating because it shows that Trump knowingly obstructed justice and knowingly violated federal law regarding classified documents. This testimony can be used to prove that Trump's possession of classified documents was not accidental, but was deliberate and was accompanied by efforts to conceal the documents and obstruct investigations. Meadows' testimony about document obstruction is also absolutely devastating to Trump's legal defenses because it shows consciousness of guilt and shows that Trump was deliberately trying to hide evidence from investigators. What's really significant about Meadows calling the whole thing a deliberate conspiracy is that Meadows is confirming that the fake elector scheme and the election overthrow effort was not some accident or some misunderstanding. It was a deliberate, planned, coordinated conspiracy to overturn the election results. This is exactly what prosecutors need to prove conspiracy charges. Meadows is providing testimony that confirms the conspiracy, confirms that the conspiracy was deliberate, confirms that Trump was aware of the conspiracy and was directing the conspiracy. This is the kind of testimony that can result in conspiracy convictions for Trump and for everyone involved in the election overthrow scheme. Let's talk about why Meadows decided to cooperate with prosecutors despite receiving a pardon from Trump. Meadows apparently decided that telling the truth was more important than protecting Trump or maintaining loyalty to Trump. Meadows apparently decided that cooperating with federal prosecutors and providing testimony and evidence was the right thing to do morally and legally. Meadows apparently decided that Trump's pardon was not enough to buy his silence or his loyalty. This is absolutely shocking because Trump apparently thought that by pardoning Meadows, Trump would guarantee Meadows' silence and loyalty. But Meadows decided differently. Meadows decided to cooperate with prosecutors and provide the evidence and testimony that could lead to Trump's conviction. This shows that Trump's strategy of using pardons to buy witnesses' silence is failing. Trump apparently thought Trump could pardon people who had evidence against Trump, and that would ensure their silence. But Meadows is showing that even a pardon is not enough to guarantee a witness silence if that witness decides that telling the truth is more important. What's also important to understand is that Meadows is now the prosecution's most valuable witness. Meadows has firsthand knowledge of Trump's actions and Trump's statements. Meadows can testify about conversations with Trump, about meetings with Trump, about Trump's state of mind and Trump's intentions. Meadows can describe the fake elector scheme from the perspective of someone who was present during the planning and execution of the scheme. Meadows can describe the pressure campaign against state officials from the perspective of someone who was involved in coordinating that campaign. Meadows can describe Trump's role in January 6th from the perspective of someone who was with Trump that day. Meadows is the kind of witness that can make or break a criminal case against Trump. Meadows' testimony is probably going to be the centerpiece of the prosecution's case against Trump. Okay, so let's break down what Mark Meadows' cooperation with federal prosecutors actually means for Trump's legal future and for Trump's political survival. The first key point is that Trump's legal defense against election interference charges has been completely demolished by Meadows' testimony. Trump's defense was based on the claim that Trump sincerely believed the election was stolen and that Trump was trying to ensure election integrity. But Meadows has testified under oath that Trump told him Trump obviously didn't win. This testimony shatters Trump's defense completely because it proves that Trump knew the election results were legitimate. Trump can no longer claim that Trump genuinely believed the election was stolen. Trump can no longer claim that Trump's actions were motivated by a desire to ensure election integrity. Meadows has proven that Trump's actions were motivated by a desire to overturn legitimate election results and to stay in power. This is absolutely devastating to Trump's legal position because Trump's entire defense is based on a false claim about what Trump believed. What's really significant about Meadows' cooperation is that it shows that Trump's closest allies are now turning against Trump and are cooperating with prosecutors. Meadows was Trump's chief of staff. Meadows was closer to Trump than almost anyone else in Trump's inner circle. If Meadows is flipping and cooperating with prosecutors, that sends a message to everyone else in Trump's orbit that they should consider cooperating with prosecutors too. Other people who were involved in the fake elector scheme, other people who were involved in the pressure campaign against state officials, other people who were involved in the document obstruction, other people who were involved in January 6th. All of these people are probably now questioning whether they should cooperate with prosecutors instead of trying to protect Trump. Meadows' cooperation is probably going to trigger a cascade of other witnesses cooperating with prosecutors. Meadows is showing that cooperating with prosecutors is the right thing to do, and that sending a signal to others that they should cooperate too. Now let's talk about what this means for Trump's criminal exposure and for the likelihood that Trump will be convicted on election interference charges and document obstruction charges. With Meadows' testimony about Trump saying, "Obviously we didn't win," prosecutors have direct evidence that Trump knew the election results were legitimate. With Meadows' emails and texts showing Trump directing the fake elector scheme, prosecutors have direct evidence of Trump's involvement in the conspiracy. With Meadows' testimony about Trump pressuring state officials, prosecutors have direct evidence of election interference. With Meadows' testimony about Trump's instructions to Giuliani, prosecutors have evidence of Trump's deliberate spreading of election lies. With Meadows' testimony about January 6th, prosecutors have evidence of Trump's role in inciting the riot. With Meadows' testimony about document obstruction, prosecutors have evidence of Trump's consciousness of guilt. All of this evidence combined is going to make it very difficult for Trump to avoid conviction on multiple counts. Trump's legal exposure is enormous, and Trump's likelihood of being convicted is very high based on Meadows' testimony and evidence. What's also really important to understand is that Meadows' testimony and evidence is already in the record. Meadows has already given his testimony. Meadows has already provided his documents and evidence to prosecutors. Even if Trump tries to intimidate Meadows or tries to do something to undermine Meadows' credibility, the damage is already done because Meadows' testimony is already recorded and the evidence is already submitted to prosecutors. Trump cannot undo what Meadows has already done. Trump cannot make Meadows unflip. Trump cannot make Meadows take back his testimony or his evidence. Meadows has given prosecutors everything they need to prosecute Trump on multiple counts. This is absolutely catastrophic for Trump's legal position. Let's talk about what Trump's apparent strategy of pardoning witnesses is actually accomplishing. Trump apparently thought that by pardoning Meadows and potentially pardoning other witnesses, Trump would guarantee their silence and their loyalty. But Meadows is showing that even a pardon is not enough to guarantee a witness silence. Meadows is showing that if a witness decides that telling the truth is more important than protecting a former president, then the pardon is not going to stop that witness from cooperating with prosecutors. Trump's strategy of trying to buy witnesses' silence with pardons is apparently failing. This is absolutely humiliating for Trump because Trump apparently thought Trump could control witnesses by pardoning them, but Meadows is proving that Trump cannot control witnesses through pardons. Meadows is going to appear in court and testify against Trump no matter what Trump does or no matter what Trump has done to try to control Meadows. Trump's strategy of using pardons to silence witnesses is collapsing. What's really significant about the timing of Meadows' cooperation is that it's happening at a time when Trump is already severely weakened by other crises and other defeats. Trump has lost court battles over executive power. Trump has been impeached multiple times. Trump's approval ratings are declining in his home state of Florida. Trump's House Republicans are threatening mass resignations. Trump's cabinet is in chaos due to corruption scandals. Trump's administration suffered a massive cybersecurity breach. Trump is showing visible signs of health decline and fatigue. And now Trump's own chief of staff is flipping and cooperating with prosecutors against Trump. All of these crises are piling up at the same time and are creating a situation where Trump is completely overwhelmed and completely unable to handle the pressure and stress. Trump's presidency is collapsing from every direction simultaneously. Trump is dealing with legal threats, political threats, health threats, and now his closest allies are turning against him and cooperating with prosecutors. This is an absolutely catastrophic situation for Trump. What's also important to understand is that Meadows' cooperation is probably going to embolden other witnesses and other potential cooperators to come forward and cooperate with prosecutors. When one major witness like Meadows flips and cooperates, that sends a signal to everyone else that cooperation with prosecutors is an option, and that cooperation might be the right thing to do. Other people in Trump's inner circle are probably now calculating whether they should cooperate with prosecutors. Other people who have evidence of Trump's criminal conduct are probably now thinking about whether they should provide that evidence to prosecutors. Meadows' cooperation is probably going to trigger a cascade of other witnesses coming forward and providing evidence against Trump. This cascade of witness cooperation could be absolutely devastating to Trump's legal position because multiple witnesses with multiple pieces of evidence could paint a picture of systematic criminal conspiracy involving Trump and multiple people in Trump's administration. Now let's talk about what Meadows' betrayal means for Trump's political future and for Trump's ability to maintain the loyalty of his base and his inner circle. Meadows was supposed to be Trump's loyal chief of staff. Meadows was supposed to be someone who would protect Trump and would defend Trump no matter what. But Meadows decided to cooperate with prosecutors instead. This is a form of betrayal that is absolutely devastating to Trump because it shows that Trump cannot trust even his closest allies. If Trump cannot trust Meadows, then Trump probably cannot trust anyone else in his inner circle. Everyone else in Trump's orbit is probably now calculating whether they should cooperate with prosecutors instead of protecting Trump. This is absolutely humiliating for Trump because it shows that Trump's authority and Trump's ability to maintain loyalty from his close advisors is collapsing. People in Trump's inner circle are abandoning Trump and are deciding that cooperating with prosecutors is more important than protecting Trump. What's also significant is that Meadows' cooperation is going to damage Trump's credibility with his base and with his supporters. Trump's supporters have always believed that Trump was being persecuted by prosecutors and that Trump's enemies were trying to take Trump down unfairly. But now, Meadows is showing that Trump actually committed the crimes that prosecutors are investigating. Meadows is showing that Trump knew the election was not stolen, but pursued the fake elector scheme anyway. Meadows is showing that Trump's claims about election fraud were false, and that Trump was deliberately spreading election lies. This is going to shake the faith of some Trump supporters because Meadows is a credible witness who was close to Trump and who knows what really happened. Some Trump supporters are probably going to accept Meadows' testimony as truthful and are probably going to start to believe that Trump actually did commit the crimes that prosecutors are investigating. Here's what comes next and what you should expect to see happen as Meadows' cooperation moves forward and as prosecutors use Meadows' testimony and evidence to build their cases against Trump. First, prosecutors are probably going to indict Trump on multiple counts, including conspiracy, election interference, document obstruction, and potentially other charges. Meadows' testimony and evidence is probably going to be the foundation of the prosecution's case. Second, Trump is probably going to be tried in federal court on these charges. Meadows is probably going to be called as a prosecution witness. Trump's lawyers are probably going to cross-examine Meadows, but are probably not going to be able to shake Meadows' testimony or convince Meadows to change his story. Third, based on Meadows' testimony and the other evidence that prosecutors have, Trump is probably going to be convicted on multiple counts. Trump's jury is probably going to believe Meadows' testimony and probably going to believe that Trump committed the crimes that prosecutors are investigating. Fourth, if Trump is convicted, Trump is probably going to face significant prison time, depending on the severity of the crimes that Trump is convicted of and depending on how Trump's actions impacted the country and impacted the integrity of elections. Trump could potentially face years or decades of prison time if Trump is convicted on serious charges like conspiracy and election interference. This is absolutely catastrophic for Trump and is absolutely catastrophic for Trump's political future. Trump is not just facing the end of his political career. Trump is facing the possibility of spending the remainder of Trump's life in prison. Fifth, Trump's former allies and Trump's former inner circle are probably going to continue cooperating with prosecutors and providing more evidence against Trump. Meadows has opened the floodgates and has shown that cooperating with prosecutors is the right thing to do. Other witnesses are probably going to follow Meadows' example and are probably going to cooperate with prosecutors as well. What's the bottom line here that you need to understand about Mark Meadows' cooperation with federal prosecutors and what it means for Trump's legal and political future? Meadows was Trump's chief of staff and was Trump's closest advisor during the period when Trump was trying to overturn the election. Meadows testified under oath that Trump told him, obviously, we didn't win, which proves that Trump knew the election results were legitimate. Meadows provided emails, texts, and call logs showing Trump directing the fake elector scheme and pressuring state officials to change election results. Meadows provided testimony about Trump's instructions to Rudy Giuliani for making baseless fraud claims. Meadows provided testimony about Trump's role in January 6th incitement. Meadows provided testimony about Trump's document obstruction. All of this testimony and evidence is absolutely devastating to Trump's legal position and absolutely devastating to Trump's ability to defend himself in court. Meadows' cooperation shows that Trump's legal defense against election interference charges is collapsing. Meadows' cooperation shows that Trump's closest allies are now turning against Trump and are providing evidence to prosecutors. Meadows' cooperation is probably going to trigger a cascade of other witnesses coming forward and cooperating with prosecutors. Meadows' cooperation means that Trump is probably going to be indicted on multiple counts and is probably going to be convicted on those counts based on Meadows' testimony and evidence. Meadows' cooperation means that Trump is facing serious prison time if Trump is convicted. Meadows' cooperation is absolutely catastrophic for Trump's legal future and absolutely catastrophic for Trump's political survival. Trump's presidency is collapsing and Trump's legal position is becoming completely untenable. This is the end of Trump as a political figure and potentially the beginning of Trump's criminal prosecution and imprisonment. Meadows has betrayed Trump in the most devastating way possible, and that betrayal is going to define the remainder of Trump's life.